Calling the Warwick School Committee meeting to order at 3:01. It's quite a record for us, but perhaps. We are meeting in person today, and the majority of our agenda will be interviewing folks who've been kind enough to apply for the interim superintendent position for next year. The whole school committee is here in person, so we don't need to do anything by roll call, and of course, primarily our focus today is to Jim, not Jim, to get to know Jim. So, we're going to go ahead and jump right into. I mean, maybe what we can do is, just reintroduce ourselves very, very briefly at the beginning. We're taking turns asking questions. It's sort of spinning around the table, so we all get a chance to talk. Louise is in charge of making sure we stay on track time. 4.5 minutes per question. That's right.
Keep track, actually. 2 minutes left, 1 minute left. I just want to.
So of course, we also have Carol, our superintendent, with us, and you get to start the question.
Yeah. Do you want to say who everybody is, or do you feel like
We've all had a chance to shake hands, so it would probably be good for us to just take a little bit of a moment to just talk a little bit about ourselves in terms of our focus, school committee work, because we have a lot of original people who definitely specialize.
do you want to share a little bit?
So go right ahead.
Okay, so first question for you, Jim. What is it that attracted you to our district, and what do you think makes you the right choice for this position?
So what attracted me was your advertisement looking for an interim superintendent, and the idea that the outdoor educational component seemed really interesting, as did the small size of the district, which was intriguing. So that's what made it interesting. I wasn't familiar, so we had a couple conversations, and it's become more interesting. I've been curious and learning more about the district. The second part of the question, I'm not sure I am. I don't know. The other candidates might be better person. So I would say that my experience. I have experience working in a variety of different grade levels. I have experience working in really small, skewed communities. I have experience working with a broader community within that small community, not just inside of a school, but with the town and the town offices and the folks of the town, whether they are parents of the children, whether they are just community members. I work president in Carlisle, Mass. I've been there for 10 years. I think we've built a really built. It existed, right? It's a beautiful community. It's an engaged community. The folks love their schools, and we've just been able to sustain that and kind of build upon that. So that idea of really being connected with students, the staff, and the community is something that I've done. It's in my wheelhouse. I know I derive a lot of joy out of it. I know our community derives a lot of benefit out of it. They appreciate it. I believe our students have kind of derived a lot of benefit, whether it's their feeling of belonging, whether it's their feeling of close connections with the staff and the building, whether it's the outcomes we've achieved when they leave us in 8th grade and go on to find success in the public school setting or in a private school setting, and whether it's the foundations they take with them after that. I think we've served our students and our community well, and I feel like I've had a role in that success. So that's what I would bring if you are interested in having me out. But am I the right fit? I'm not 100%. I've seen some wonderful candidates down there, so it could be nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
We're interested in what you see, and since you have some experience with small sizes, what you see as the special considerations for the entry plan for an interim superintendent, and related questions which I can repeat. how would you begin your search? And whom would you seek out? What information would you want? Or
It's a good question. I think it's an interesting dynamic, right? When you're having a person come in for a year. Because I think when I did my entry plan in Carlisle, I think it was over the course of 4 or 5 months, right? So at that time, you're halfway through the year, or you're in November, right? You come to some. So it may be expedited, but it doesn't necessarily have to be rushed, right? Like the idea, who would I reach out to? I reach out to school committees, spend some time with individuals, spend some time with town board members. Absolutely time with parents, absolutely time with students. If you can access some of our students, our middle school, high school students who are no longer in the building. And just kind of ask them questions about what do they really love about this? Or what do they see the things that we could change? Or what are some of the things that you do not want to see change? I think that was one of the most interesting questions. Like, what are those things that are really foundational? But for this school, right, you've really just created it in the last 3 years. So like all of those elements are front and center in whatever you do every day. But I hearken to that because kind of in that same vein, when I showed up in Carlisle and I asked those questions, one of the things I walked away with was that community did not want to give up their autonomy, right? They are a pre-K-8 district. They send the children to a regional high school, but they wanted to maintain that. And over the years, there have been conversations about regionalizing. And I always just say, well, the community spoke this way then, and I would believe the community will speak the same way, and they do, because that's a real thing. And as you came to realize 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, 6, whenever those years were that you decided, like, we've given up too much, like, we want to actually have that time. So that's what I would start with, those questions, with those groups. Seeing what other events we have in the community, right? Is the community is the school and the parents and the students, but that's probably just a small portion of the Warwick community. So what other events do we have in Warwick? Where do the people gather? Where do the people go? I know in our town, there's like Old Home Day. They have Memorial Days, and these are events where people come together. The different organizations run events. So those are places, especially as a new person, you want to go out and meet people because the relationships are primary. And if something's happening in school, you want to, I'm sure everyone in the community knows who Carol is. They have her image. When they talk about the Warwick schools, they see Carol, or they see Stephen, or they see all of you. And to be the new person in those roles, you want them to see you, like, not exclusively you, but they see you as part of that. And not be a mystery, not be some name that no one really knows that who that person is. So that's what we start with the plan, come in. And it's a little different, right? Because you're coming into an interim position. And as we talked about earlier, it's about like sustaining and maintaining the momentum that you've established these first 3 years and moving those initiatives forward. We're not looking to recreate a new strategic plan. We're not looking to kind of build from the bottom. We're still moving forward with what we have, and that's what we need. Sorry.
So what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a leader? That's one of those wonderful HR questions.
So what I would think of, so I think a strength is that I am, I guess the word to describe myself now is sensible. I try to just be sensible, right? Like, what is the most sensible thing, right? Understanding that we have goals, we have aspirations, and what's the most sensible approach to achieve those, right? So sensibility, I think I am level-headed. I think I am engaging, and I would say like engaging, not just in an, I hope I'm engaging in an interpersonal way, but like engaging with the community, kind of in making decisions and engaging the components or the constituents of the community in the work of the school. And kind of and working around consensus and working around professionalism. Like we've all worked people who micromanage things, who kind of want to get into the weeds on everything. And sometimes that's helpful if someone needs help, but often that's not. Especially in a situation where people wear many hats. So it's often like, we put good people in place, and I've been fortunate to be surrounded by good people. And like trust in them and their decision making. While also understanding things are gonna happen. We'll have troubles. There'll be problems, there'll be errors, there'll be challenges. That is all part of the work. Like that is the process. Like that's. If we think we're gonna structure everything so there's never an issue, there's never a problem, we're gonna spend a lot of time doing things that don't. It is not gonna work. But it's more about how do we move things forward? How do we resolve issues? How do we solve problems so the kids' experiences are what we want it to be? And because kids tune in too to adults, kids know exactly what's happening all the time. And we want to be good role models for them. We want them to see the traits that we want to inculcate in them, kind of inform in the adults that they experience every day. So that was some of the positives. How did you phrase the other one?
Weaknesses, I mean challenges.
Weaknesses, weaknesses.
Edges.
Yeah, I don't want to list them all right now. I would say,
Well, as a superintendent, you can move this.
yeah, oh, yeah, it's even in that realm already. It's
Well. And so you're a realist.
yeah, let me see what like, so. So it depends on what's, so I'm gonna talk a little bit like this, your community, so in I think the leadership you provide. Because it came up in Stevens in the interview, how engaged you are with like classroom observations and professional feedback. And what you can share with your staff to help them kind of focus on the areas they need to grow. So I think that is something that in my role presently, I do that, but I don't think I do it as extensively and with the expertise that you may bring to that piece of the instructional feedback. I've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, but the fine tuning of what that looks like with regard to how you provide that in a classroom to teachers, especially around areas for growth, that may be an area, I'd say. Maybe it'd be a real job. So. Yes.
Seems like a really nice place to grow. That you've identified yourself.
Absolutely, and we work on it all the time, but like so I have this experience of. This year, I'm just gonna ramble on, listen, make sure we keep it track. Alright, so the idea that we, in the district, this year, last year, we had four person leadership team. Principal, middle school principal went to become assistant superintendent someplace. Special ed director, student sports service director went somewhere else to be in a bigger district. So we hired someone for that one. And because we're a small district and we were thinking about our leadership model, and we've been talking about it previously for economic reasons and for like just the whole school model. I was like, why don't I take on those responsibilities, the middle school principalship, because I have experience in all that. And it'll give us some time to figure out where we want to go, like how we might change that model. Then all of a sudden, my life changed dramatically. Like one day in October, when I heard a teacher talking about, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Mass Teachers Retirement System. So I heard one teacher talk about something they had done and how they had gotten this retirement plus that I don't think I could get. So I sent a letter to them as she did, and they said I could. So that changed my whole retirement plan, put us in a little situation. But at the same time, we brought in. We brought in a woman who's coming on as the interim assistant principal, but really she was like a superintendent for curriculum instruction. Like she brought her in. We got a great deal, and she is so knowledgeable. Like when you're in proximity to someone who's so knowledgeable, you're like, oh yeah, this is outside of my league. So that's kind of, that's what made me kind of much more aware of that dynamic. Sorry, I found out.
Okay, I have a multi-pronged. So I want you to draw on your experience and think about how would you as a superintendent think and share. Focus on student growth and achievement, work with the community, maintain and sustain the leadership team, and go about planning for subsequent years program and budget. And I can give you those to focus on student growth and achievement.
So student growth and achievement, I mean, that's the most important one we have, right, for us. But I think that now I want to say this as I juxtapose it with that last answer, which are really about teacher growth and experience, but really kind of focusing on that student experience, making sure we understand what we are aspiring to have our students know and be able to do, and then making sure that we are giving them the opportunities to both get direct instruction in that and practice that and implement those and apply those skills. And then being able to gather some data that allows us to know whether we are actually making progress with regard to that or not. And if we are there areas where we can continue to enhance that? And if we're not, let's try something different. Like, what can we change in our practice to see if we can and have the impact that we're seeking? So, and I think that is ongoing. Like, student growth is what all our energy should be focused on. So that's not all. Because in order to do that, we need those other components: planning, a leadership team, and more importantly, sometimes. But it seems like you've got some magic going on here and Warwick with regard to the budgeting, right? Because you shared someone who shared it? Such a Diana, I apologize. But you shared the budget, and you're right, like that was something I looked at, I was like, it gave me a great deal of insight in from one perspective. So I was thinking about that, but then when you come and you speak with everyone in this building, then it kind of, the dynamic changed slightly, or my understanding changed, my perspective changed. So that was an interesting component, so thank you for doing that. So the first one was students, the second one was.
Working with the community. And you spoke
Good.
to, and so I think I'll
Thank you.
maintain and sustain the leadership.
So I think that's a key component, right? So I think leadership, you're super fortunate having the folks you have in place right now, especially as you again an understanding of a variety of roles that they fulfill and the responsibilities there in the school community. And that's primary because those folks, and really like your team is a leadership team. Like the staff isn't, it's not like we have these multi-dimensions of staff. And so everybody is a leader in their role and in the school community, but it's important to maintain, especially as an interim person, right? If you have a successful staff, if everything's running smoothly, like there's always a challenge, but if everything's moving along, like an interim should be here to kind of maintain that and ensure that those folks remain kind of committed, dedicated, and happy in the positions they're in. So that come next springtime, everybody's kind of still in a very positive place and everybody's looking forward to Carol's return. I think that's, so like, I would see that as one of those primary responsibilities of an interim is to maintain that. Well, I think just from based on my own practice, but also there's a lot of collegiality, collaborativeness, shared decision making, kind of making sure that we are all on the same page with what we want to see happen in our school community, what we want to see happen in our classrooms, and what we want our children's experiences to be, and what we want to communicate with families out to those components. So I think that's communications, taking the time or maintaining the time and maintaining the practices that you have in place right now that provide the opportunity for all of them.
And then the last one is, how would you go about planning for the subsequent years of program and budget?
So I think right now, even with the committee, I'm not sure of how your select board, select board, finance committee.
Not really both.
Yeah, that's what I mean, so you
Finance
like,
committee members. Like, would-
can be in the double, like,
Yes.
so that may make things easier, right? But making sure like connecting with those folks and understanding like what the 5-10 year. Kind of financial outlook of the town is, what's possible there. Carol talked previously about like grants and accessing grants and working on that. Looking at the needs of the school, and it's great that all those folks are involved as we look at those needs, but as you've identified just recent, but like next year's approach of opening up 25 slots, like understanding the impact of that, and the financial impact, the costs and the benefits, and like what that makes possible, like, is that an additive right now? Are we seeing that as an addition that's gonna help make things possible? And yet the experience might be different, right? When you might enter into something that all of a sudden it's not getting the result of what. And just being able to evaluate that and have those conversations with the communities, because if it's successful. And there's a demand, and it might be a road to continue down. If we notice that the impact isn't positive as well, might kind of tag that for the conversation this year, and then next year, as you meet with us. I think that was, it's interesting. So,
Yeah, some of us have to contact the ethics commission sometimes. We're doing this, we're doing that, people.
you have to recuse yourself.
To get them to give us a fairly, usually a fairly vague answer, but that someone says it's okay. So.
Did you do introductions, so when you came in and I missed that? Or
Really, we should.
Yeah, probably should, because so he knows.
Outros, like.
So let's leave.
Question.
Well, I like help as he's
Yeah, that's true.
questions.
That's kind of like that, as we ask questions, we can say.
Yeah, so I'll just start, and I'll move on.
Who's next?
So I've been on the Pioneer School Committee where we send our kids. And then been on this committee on the, chairman, well, I was chairman on the board of selectmen. And I'm a retired superintendent. I was principal for a lot of years and a business administrator and a superintendent, so. Retirement is great, but you tend to keep getting involved.
Close by?
Pardon?
Were you close by?
I was in the Berkshires, Mount Greylock, I was in Mohawk Trail Regional, I was in Dunstable Regional, and then I did a couple of stints in New Hampshire. So I did a lot on the ride. I enjoyed your answers as you're at the bit. Yes, yeah, you know my name. See, I got there in 2005. I left with a life report, but you probably saw.
I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say a name. In my name, too. Oh my god.
Yeah, that happened.
Oh, yeah,
According
she
to
was
our
on
meeting.
school committee when you were there.
Twice a week. Last about. So, yeah, so this is exciting because, we're in our third year and a lot of good things are happening here. So, and keep those moving along. And you're right you were spot on about that enrollment when you're doing your interim class. And I enjoyed your answer. So let's see, my question is, how would you create a safe environment, for the staff to feel comfortable coming to you with a problem on?
I think, what I would say is I try just to be myself. So I think. And my own behavior is sometimes. I won't say it's unexpected, it's not. I try to be casual, I try to be engaging, I try to be interactive. I try to have conversations about the most far-flung things, just as I do with the children, right? Like, because you build relationships so that when there are challenges, people feel comfortable coming to you, right? So we may be talking about, I was talking with someone about, oh my god, that's the woman's name that teaches 5th and 6th, which is the music teacher.
Eddie.
Yeah, I was talking with her and just about mentioned her husband and Shakespeare, and I mentioned I've just seen Hamlet and how they, and then I love this show called Upstart Crow. So like just kind of bringing myself to it and talking about things and sharing, just so I'm just like a regular person, so everybody feels comfortable in it. And it served me well. The idea that I'm with you, we're here together, and most of the time it's really kind of friendly and positive. And yet, there may be a moment in time when you need to share something, need assistance with something, or there's a problem that you want to address. And like, that's when people feel like, oh, I can say anything to him, like, I can go in. Or you might want to just come in and say some stuff to me, right? Like, you want to come in and say like something for some reason. That's happened in the past too. But like the idea that like you can come in and say what you want to say to me. And that's, and either I have to apologize, I might feel bad when it's something that transpired, or I might be like, oh, you need to get something off your chest, and we can move on with our lives. And the next conversation will be back to, let's talk about Emily in Paris, or whatever we're talking about at the moment. Don't ask me why Emily in Paris. It was a favorite one time, and it's Paris. Yeah, I love the fashion. So I think that's important, as is being present, being in classrooms, showing up to events, that people are doing something special, kind of being there, recognizing it, and just letting people see that you're part of the team, you're part of the community. Like, we are all in this thing together. This is a difficult job. Like, educating children, dealing with children, kind of working together. It's hard work. So the idea that like it doesn't always have to be a murder, but we're in it together. And I think that goes away in like helping people to just feel like they can say stuff to you and be in support. Like, people go through tough times, both at work, like go through tough times in their lives, and just like, I know life is hard. Life is totally hard, right? Just being there and understanding that when people need to.
All right, describe the budget making process you've used and what your experience includes with regard to budget management and budgetary control.
So budget making process is so I'm also like, I apologize, but like, because I'm also trying to be sensible and just trying to be real. So like sometimes I hear people talk about zero-based budgeting. You ever heard of zero-based budgeting? And I am skeptical too, like, really, zero-based, like, come on. Like we know what our costs are, we know what we have, we know what running, we know what like increases gonna, like, so it's like, here's what our programs look like right now. Here are some of the things we aspire to. So what is the process? I'll go back to the question. For me, the process is like, all right, making sure that I'm communicating with my admin team, and we're communicating with our staff to identify what our needs are. Like, what are those things we need? When I say our needs, like we have programming now. It's like, have we identified needs that are in addition to what we have presently? Do we need another teacher? Do we need another? Are we looking at expanding our world language? Looking at expanding our intervention services? Have we determined that we need a PT or an OT based on the service, an additional speech person based on what? So let's identify what those are. And then, what do we have presently? What are our costs? What costs can we control? Because we take that information, we build a budget. This is what we're hoping to have. Understanding that the community has a certain tolerance level for an increase, and the tolerance level, I know I'm saying words that are very different from the dynamic you have. The tolerance level for an increase is like, in our community, if we came in with a 3% increase, everybody would be like, oh, fine, thank you very much, great work, right? So what we've realized in the last couple of years, we are not coming in at a 3% increase. Like, so we do that work, and then we say, like, here's what it looks like, and then we'll have some conversations with the finance committee and the select board and the school committee, And we'll say like, what would it take to get down to something, say, well. If you have to a level service budget, so our level service budgets have been like. 5.5%, 6% coming into. Coming into the budget season, and then. Again, working with those folks, looking at the line items we can't control, or seeing where we can have savings, how can we get our numbers down? Are we losing any of our paraprofessionals due to students graduating who may not? So we're always in the process of trying to shrink the ask while also keeping student needs at the forefront, right? And I think that's, so I'm just describing how it works in the town I'm in. So now we'll sit down and say like, all right, now we're coming in at a 4.5% increase. And it's like, that's still super high, but like, they say, what will it take to get down to 3% increase? And then we start talking about like, what would be the impact to students, and we share that. And oftentimes, when we start having those conversations and we start talking about very specific things, it changes dynamics sometimes, and we understand sometimes they ask us to understanding how the school committee financing works, but also understanding in the town we're in, like everyone likes to go to the town meeting in agreement with the budgets that are being offered. Right, so everyone can get behind, here's the budget, select board's behind it, finance committee's behind it, school committee's behind it, everybody's behind it, whatever it is, if everybody lines up. They will talk for 3 minutes about the school budget. And move on. But everybody's not, because the work is done, so sometimes we have to make we have to make those reductions to get to a place where it's palatable to all the parties involved. And it still will work for the students. So that's that's how the process works. Where I am presently. But there's also negotiations, like, so I'll just talk about this year, like right now, we're in the process of getting a little written agreement between the finance committee and the school committee, because they've asked us, we've traditionally, in a school operating budget, we don't really build any contingencies in. We keep it pretty streamlined, but we have had a contingency of like $125,000 in there for on a district placement. In case a student comes up that needs to be placed, because we have a number of students who are placed on the district, it's like, we have it there. But the finance committee is trying to take away those contingencies, which I totally understand, right? Like they're trying to manage money, and so like we're in agreement that like we will take that up. We won't ask for that. But the finance committee is also taking on the idea that like if we do identify students who need to be out of district, you will take care of that out of free cash. Like they have free cash available. So that's just something you have to be aware. So while we agreed in practice, they are writing a little agreement. And I also said to our school committee chair last week, it's like, make sure, they know that by taking this out, they are assuming any additional out of district costs. And also make them aware, we have 3 kids in the pipeline right now, so out of district. So like, this isn't like theoretical, this is like,
This is happening.
there will be $375,000 that I won't be here, but you guys make sure everybody's aware, right? Because we just want to be transparent. It's really important. So just make sure they're aware that this isn't like, it won't be a surprise. They should know. It's part of the work we do, like it has to happen. So just make sure.
It wasn't there, but it put it in, right?
So we've never gone, in the time I've been there, they haven't asked for an override. Because usually we get close enough, like, so we often want things that we don't get, right? If you want them, we don't have the funding to get it, we'll make do and go forward. What would happen if it was for out of district tuition, we could probably go back to the town and just ask them straight up for that, because it needs to be done. And we have a trusting relationship where we make this work. So that was the first part of the question. I apologize for rambling. The second part of the question was.
And
Answer, think
So when it comes to, just one last thing,
your experience with
when it
budget.
comes to the management, so right now, like, we, a couple of years back. We had a business manager, and then. That person retired, and then we had like an interim business manager, and then. again, we're always looking to save money ourselves, right? So it was like, listen. We're gonna contract with a firm, we'll have them come in and provide. The real fundamental financial services. But I will take on some of those additional responsibilities, so not a dollar goes out of my district without me kind of signing off on that, so whether payroll. Or whether it's like, in all the invoices and warrants and all those through me as like an additional. The business manager, the contractor, they look at it and I review that too, so I'm in the day-to-day budget management also. So when things like, as I leave the district, I'm like, everybody. You're all gonna come in here, we're all gonna look at the book, like, before we leave the district, because finances are. And finances are one of those things, right, like you leave and then if people aren't sure what transpired.
Right.
All of a sudden there's a gray cloud over something, so like, no, like. And then we don't have a problem, yeah, we just want everybody to be good. Because finances of, that's where things go sideways, that's.
And can I just follow up with a little piece of, I'm curious if you gave a global answer about timing and how you went about it, which is great. What would you say real quickly, what were the hardest reductions you had to make? To get a budget where the town would.
So I think one of the most so we have, so we're a pre-K through 8 district, and we have. K 1, 2, 3, 4 were traditional classroom settings, so right, you have one teacher and a group of students. And that's where we have no flexibility, if the numbers go up, we can add, if the numbers go down, we can take a section away. 6, 7, and 8, we have a middle school model. So that means we start our budget with an English, math, science, and social studies teacher, like we have one team in grade. So then we have 5th grade, we have a dyad model, so it's like a transition to the middle school model. So we have like two two-person teams, so one team ELA, math, science, social, ELA and social studies, math and science, 2 people. So times were difficult, then we had to kind of reduce, so we were reducing like staff in 5th grade, so we were changing the model that we had and wanted to go from 4 teachers down to 3 teachers, which was something we don't really.
You don't wanna do.
We don't wanna do, we hadn't had to do previously, but it was something that
Yeah,
we were doing at that time, so that was a challenge, you know.
sure.
Community members, like, no, we haven't yeah, even in the COVID, even during the COVID Zoom meetings, we didn't have as many people at those meetings as we could. Right, because now when you start to impact the student experience in that way, you get a lot of folks kind of all of a sudden coming out to the meeting because they wanna. They have an opinion and they want to do things.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to say that we've got 4 questions, right? And if you'd like to finish it, 4 minutes. Yeah, I'm talking to these. Okay. We'd like to finish this at 4.
So you have to ask us.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's some of this long, I think, but my next one, the question's long, but I don't think it's going to be a lot of years meetings. Yeah, so we talked a little bit to commentary. I'm raised out. This year, I'm a reading interventionist here part-time and a part-time consultant to teachers on what I trained them in last year with using Orton Gillingham with the University of Florida curriculum to teach ELA, to teach phonics, especially. So that's my expertise. I've been in town since 1988 when I've been in here, that is. But I've only been a part of what's going on here the last 2 years. So it's pretty exciting to me to be able to be involved in my own town. So, yeah, that's me. That's my late in life career shift to being a teacher. So, now, I would like you to speak about your experience working with principals and other building leaders who oversee teaching and learning. And it's a long question, but can you speak about handling any disagreement that might arise between you and the principal? And what topics do you think are appropriate to discuss and to leave alone, even if you disagree with them? And I'll repeat any of that you want.
So I have worked with principals both as principal,
Mhm.
kind of working with other principals in the district, and
Yeah.
as the superintendent, working with principals in the district. So I think one of the critical roles we serve when we're with other kind of supervisors or evaluators is really kind of getting a baseline and having a shared kind of approach to feedback for faculty and staff, like so observations and evaluations, making sure that we as those evaluators kind of are on the same page, making sure the feedback is, it's not like the two of us would go in and have totally different experiences watching the same lesson. We have to calibrate kind of where we are. So I think that's a primary part of what we do as members of a team to evaluate teachers in a district, and that's what we focus on in Carlisle and Marlborough. Things that are off, like kind of off limits, I think,
Well, think about disagreement, because the second question
Yeah.
is handling any disagreement that might arise as your superintendent and a principal. Bring something to you, or you see something that you want to address with the principal, and it's a disagreement. You're not 100%. You can't find that consensus.
It has a twist though, would you, in that question,
Yeah.
on how the principal is handling it.
Yes, how you're,
So
how
that
the
adds,
tendency. Yeah,
yeah, so those are always interesting dynamics, right? Like the idea of, and it's one of the challenges we have, where I am, where I'm located here, 10 feet away is one principal, and 20 feet in the other direction is a different principal, right? Like, so that it's very easy for people to circumvent the chain of command and just go to the superintendent and say, can we do this? Can we do that? So there are, like today, I had someone who wanted to come and speak to me. And they shared a situation. And then they were looking for some recourse on the situation they shared. And I said, well, here's how I might approach it. So I might talk to this one, and I might talk to that one, and then I might see if we get together and see if we can kind of gain some clarity around this. But I'm not really sure, because once I talk with them, I might have a different perspective, like, right, because I've only heard your perspective, so I want to go hear some other perspectives. So I shared that, and then I went to talk to the principal, who was one of the people that they were, and I said, well, I just met with this person, and this is the conversation we had, and this is what I shared. And they had a different perspective, like, they were like, well, I think we should do this and that. And I was like, all right, that sounds like a good approach, like, so I'm always open to like reconsider my own positioning. If it's something around performance, there's always additional opportunities to gain more insight by identifying what we are looking for and kind of gathering data around that specific thing. If it's like a performance disagreement with regard to a teacher's performance. So I think that would be my approach. I'm always willing to kind of engage in conversation, dialogue, go back, identify what sources of data we were gonna look at so that we can maybe get ourselves so that we are on the same page with regard to whatever is happening. And if it's an approach, like who should be dealing with this, having been a former principal, like the principalship is the principal. I've always seen the principalship as the principalship, like site-based
you don't
management.
want to interfere with that.
Site-based management, that person is the responsible party, and you want to defer to that, even if we gotta rectify things later on, like that is sacrosanct, like that should be the way. That should be the foundational piece, so.
You're not gonna publicly challenge principal.
Oh,
You
no,
would
I'm
have
not even
private
privately, it's like,
conversation.
it's like, you're. It's just like, this is, we are on a team, this is our challenge. But like, that is the principle is the principle,
Yeah. Thank you,
so.
yeah.
Right. So Diana, I'm Diana. I've been in town, you already asked, I've been in town this over 30 years. I didn't get more involved in town until my kids got older, to do with time and commuting, but since then, I have been on finance committee, been chair of the finance committee. I recently stepped down to become assistant town coordinator. We're in the process of having a transition in our town coordinator office. He's been trying to retire for about a year now, so hopefully my work there will work.
What's the word?
The manager, town.
Oh, okay.
Its town manager doesn't quite have all of the powers of the town administrator. The work under the select board, of course, the select board is well. Almost function. First, we joke that they get paid about it. Yes. And budget is one of those things I have, all right. So, please imagine that you've learned that there is less funding coming in for the federal lunch aid for fiscal year 27 than anticipated. And I'll add a layer to that. Let's say it is mid-May, so town meeting is already happened. What kind of problems might that create, and how would you look for a solution?
So this year or for next year? So this year,
Fiscal year 20, the one that's coming up.
so we're under the impression we're gonna have less.
So let's say we think we do all the budgeting process, figuring there's gonna be, 15,000 there. And middle of May comes and, things are a little unusual with federal government right now, and we learn that we're gonna get about 30% less than we thought we were gonna get.
And right now,
Start.
your cafeteria service is fully funded through the cafeteria service.
We do have a budget line that supports the budget.
Okay, yeah.
We do, but, not very much,
Okay, yeah, we don't have any, we just money in.
That's what we're going to.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for. But you find out that some of that money in isn't gonna come. So, what kind of problem will that create? How would you?
That would create significant problems, especially at a budget like you have here in Warwick, where there isn't any. To use a food term, but it's not this. So that would create significant challenges for us. I guess. Yeah, so it would create problems in cash flow, right? We wouldn't have the funds to support the lunch and breakfast programs. And I think what I heard today is that the breakfast program also supports the before school services, right? Yeah, so that would be problematic because we might not be able to provide that. If we don't have the funding in the budget. And we are funding that through the revolving funds that come in from the food, that may be a place that we would have to look at. Kind of doing things differently unless we can find other sources of revenue to address. So it couldn't, I can't really, you wouldn't, yeah. Yeah, it would be a bit of a financial crisis. And also like, especially with like universal free lunch and universal free breakfast. Might be, maybe we might have to reconsider that. Says because if the state wants to support that, then the state needs to support that. Because I think that money's from the state. I don't think that money comes, it may pass through from federal government. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like if you want to support program, like for us, when we were told we had to provide breakfast, right? It just caused a problem for our whole schedule, like our schedule. We are not designed to have 300 kids, little kids who need help getting lunch, come in and get help getting breakfast, and then for us, like it wasn't. So like I have this thing where it's like, I understand, I want every kid to have lunch too, and breakfast too. I want kids to be fed, and I want them to be able to attend to their learning. But that was a problem. So if the powers that be are of the mind that they want to provide this to everyone, then they should fund that. So I guess I'm just being more argumentative with the people who portray it. That would be a problem. Like we would have to advocate more strongly, like if this is something you want, then fund it. But it would impact. It would impact directly impact probably here. Here. Maybe some other things.
All right, we have 2 more questions and
Yes.
technically 10 more minutes, but if we can wind up before 10 more minutes.
Yeah, and so I'm Miranda and I worked at a local small one room 7th and 8th grade middle school, and it's located on a farm. And I feel like there are a lot of shared values with like this school around like the sustainability, environmentalism, social justice, and all those things. And so I feel like the thing that I did is from a teacher perspective, And, yeah. So my last question is there something that we haven't learned about elections?
Um. Well, there's nothing I need to highlight, I wanna highlight, happy to highlight anything, but
That's great, thank you.
You just want to have a good picture of who you are, what your skills are,
yeah, I would say yes.
how you would go about
I can rephrase that question, see if I can do it. This way, what would you have liked us to know about in this interview that we didn't need to ask them about? So that you could shine light.
I think I've had the opportunity to put whatever I perceive as my best foot forward, feet forward. You know, even household about, it is what it is, I am who I am, I think I've shared that. And then. We can get the best.
Questions, my favorite question.
Yeah.
What questions do you have for us? So you spent.
Well, I actually got the opportunity to speak with Carol earlier, and I got to speak with some of the students, and I got to speak with Stephen. So I got to speak with a lot of different, so I think I've had a lot of. My questions answered, your budget prompted quite a few questions. And then I had the opportunity to kind of follow up some of those around other things, like just culture and people's experience and the attitude of what people do. So I would just say, like, you guys are doing great work. Everybody to a person is just such an integral and wonderful part of this community. And it's been great to spend some time there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. So you got all your questions answered by the earlier.
Have you shared?
Exactly.
I think you should go ahead.
You should, exactly.
I was hoping to go on
Oh.
So,
We assume that Jim knows enough about you, Carol.
Jim and I
You got a chance.
from that class.
So Adam Holloway, I actually, with Diana and a whole bunch of others, were the original group that started the fight at school open originally, and then spent the 5 years doing this to get it back to where it is. I have 2 little ones, well, that's sort of playing more.
Medium one.
Year old and a 14-year-old, and we are also homeschool weirdos. And and professionally, I am a forensic expert in the field of fire origin and engineering.
So what did you say about the homeschool?
Homeschool weirdos. That's what we call
He's a homeschool parent.
Still?
Yes,
And attaching the weirdo to it.
Yeah.
I am.
Weirdo. That's
So like you homeschool, yet you're on the school committee.
Yeah, it's been the whole evolution that was my son was here originally, and we loved the school originally. And then COVID happened and we discovered homeschooling, which we love too. And so we decided to stick with it. But part of this was we understand how important this anchor is to our community and the built community. So we agreed to stay on it. Plus, I'm also an advocate for homeschoolers. We have a lot of homeschoolers in this community, so making sure that their voice is heard in all of this in case it's ever needed. So we do see in the homeschool community, there is treat from public school versus that. So keeping that online and understanding that side of that perspective is part of what I do here. It's an interesting dynamic. It's kind of a weird eyebrow raiser if you don't really, but since the beginning, we couldn't let it go, the whole building process. So.
It's a great team, that's for sure.
Certainly feels that way.
Yeah.
Wow, Jim, thank you. I know you have your own school curriculum too, so.